Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Vocational Education and Training, SOVET, Bachelor's Degree Programs, Bachelor of Arts, Vocational Studies, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, BAVMSME, BCOLA-138 Business Communication, Block-1 Basic Concepts of Business Communication, Unit-1 and Introduction to Communication. 1.0 Objectives. After reading this unit, you should be able to describe what is communication, elaborate the process of communication, discuss various barriers to communication, analyze how to remove barriers to communication and explain principles of effective communication. 1.1 Introduction. In this age of globalization, the survival and progress of a business enterprise depend on the speed and efficiency of the communication. Every business organization therefore sets up an effective communication network for both internal as well as external interactions. Internal communication is necessary for the flow of information from top to bottom and vice versa, which ensures perfect coordination, whereas external communication boosts up procurement and supply activities. In this era of information technology, the classical paper-based communication methods have been replaced by much faster and effective internet-based communication techniques. However, there may be some barriers to communication arising from personal, environmental, organizational and physical reasons. These barriers must be removed to ensure effective communication. While communicating, one should try to follow 10 principles of effective communication. In this unit, you will read what is communication and how does it take place. You will also learn about various barriers to communication and how they can be overcome. You will also learn the principles of effective communication. 1.2 What is communication? Oxford English Dictionary defines communication as imparting or exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using some other medium. The successful conveying or sharing of ideas and feelings. Who says what? Through which channel? To whom? With what effect? Communication involves two or more persons who exchange their views, ideas and plans by face-to-face interaction, such as in meetings or through media. In modern times, the information technology, it has revolution is the process of transmitting communication by making a variety of media available which are much faster and more effective than the older methods, such as letter writing or taking on classical telephone. Now people prefer to use smartphones, WhatsApp, Skype, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram etc. for communicating. These channels are internet-based. The electronic mail, email, has replaced the classical letter writing as it is not only much faster, but also provides the possibility of sending other documents as attachment files. Furthermore, if the same communication and documents are to be sent to many recipients, the copy, CC, of the mail can be sent to all by a click of the mouse. The answer to who is the sender means the sender is the person or the party from which a message originates. Under different scenarios, a sender may have different status. Depending on the type of communication, i.e., internal or external, the sender may be different as shown below in Fig. 1.1. Figure 1.1. Internal and external communications in an organization. Look at the screen. Thus a communication starts from the sender. In the context of a business enterprise, an internal communication may originate from the director or the manager or the group leader. It may originate from the lower level of the hierarchy such as coworker or subordinate who may seek some information, clarification or seeking redressal of some grievance. In the context of an external communication, the sender may be a supplier or a vendor seeking the order for the supply of raw materials. It may be a customer or a retailer who intends to send a complaint about the product purchased, sold. Sender may be a person from the government department seeking information about the production, supply, tax returns, etc. Similarly, it may be a person from the public relations department of the organization seeking information about the new rules from a government department. Depending on the direction of the communication, sender and receiver, described later, may exchange their status. 1.3 Importance of communication. Globalization has induced fierce competition in almost every walk of life including business. Any organization cannot survive without an effective and vibrant communication system. Effective communication system establishes not only perfect coordination among the staff of the organization, but also enhances its ability to make contacts with its clients, seek their orders and comply with the same promptly. Through communication network, a company advertises its products more quickly, identifies new markets speedily, contacts its prospective buyers aggressively, and thus increases its turnover and profits effectively. In this scenario, employees of the company are also motivated, because a part of the increased profits may be given to them in the form of bonus and extra perquisites. Thus, a good communication system keeps everybody in high spirits. The employers with good communication network succeed in delivering their instructions and guidelines to their employees in clear terms. Thus, employees are energized and motivated and try to give their best to the organization. In the long run, they become valuable assets to the organization. The utmost relevance of an effective communication system was immensely realized during the COVID-19 pandemic when many national and international companies asked their employees from home online. A strong communication network in an organization contributes in the following 5 manners. Building an effective team. When members of a team are able to communicate effectively and exchange their ideas freely, they develop mutual trust. It results in building an effective team environment. Imparts everyone a voice. With effective communication system in place, everyone has the possibility of expressing his, her ideas and offer suggestions. It induces a sense of belonging and self-esteem. Seed of innovation. Free exchange of ideas and suggestion lead to innovations and new strategies. Fast remedial action. An effective communication network helps in identifying any malfunctioning in the system at any level, and remedial action can be taken well in time. It boosts growth of the organization. Perfect coordination. The cumulative effect of all the 4 factors described above is that there is perfect coordination from the management to the lowest cadre. They all work in unison, seizing every opportunity for the benefit of the organization. Check your progress. 1. Define communication. 2. Write any 4 internet-based channels of communication. 3. List possible recipients in the external communication of an organization. 4. How does communication help in coordination? 1.4 Process of communication. You have learned the concept and importance of communication. Let us now learn the process of communication. The process of communication can be depicted as follows. Who? Communicator, says what? Message, in which channel? Medium, to whom? Receiver. If we try to answer question of each box, different players, entities emerge in the whole cycle. Communication. Who communicates? It is the sender. Says what? It is the message. In which channel? It is the medium. To whom the message is sent? It is the receiver. With what effect? It is the reaction or reply of the receiver. Now let us learn each step of the process of communication in more detail. Sender. Sender is the person or the party from which a message originates. Under different scenarios, a sender may have different status. Depending on the type of communication, i.e., internal or external, the sender may be different as shown in figure 1.1 in section 1.2. Thus, a communication starts from the sender. In the context of a business enterprise, an internal communication may originate from the director or the manager or the group leader. It may originate from the lower level of the hierarchy, such as coworker or subordinate, who may seek some information, clarification, or seeking redressal of some grievance. In the context of an external communication, the sender may be a supplier or a vendor, seeking the order for the supply of raw materials. It may be a customer or a retailer who intends to send a complaint about the product purchased, sold. Sender may be a person from the government department seeking information about the production, supply, tax returns, etc. Similarly, it may be a person from the public relations department of the organization seeking information about the new rules from a government department. Depending on the direction of the communication, sender and receiver, described later, may exchange their status. Encoding. This step is not shown in the above sequence of events in a communication. It intervenes between message and channel. In fact, while sending the message in the digital form, it has to be converted into another language compatible with the electronic media. This change in the format of the message is called encoding. Encoding means to convert information into codes. Code is the system of symbol, sign, or letter used to represent the secret meaning. According to John Fiske, coding consists of both signs and rules that determine how and in what context these signs are used and how they can be combined to form more complex messages. The code and system are interrelated, i.e., type of encoding depends on the media, channel being used for the transmission of the message. Message. A message is the information, idea, thought or opinion the sender wants to send. Depending on the status of the sender within or without the business establishment, the nature of the message changes. The message from the director or manager or the group leader may be a type of order, suggestion, appreciation or warning. However, if the message is sent by a person of lower cadre, it may be a type of complaint or a request for the redressal of the grievance. A message from the vendor or supplier will be of the nature of query or reminder for the clearance of the pending bills. A message from the retailer will be a request for the supply of the goods or request for the sanction of higher margins in the sales. A customer may send a message complaining some defect in the products of the company. It is obvious that all these messages are business related. Channel. A communication channel is the medium through which communication is sent to its intended receiver. In a business enterprise, utmost care is taken to set up appropriate communication channels so that information flows quickly and correctly within and without the organization. Using an inappropriate channel for interaction can lead to negative consequences including financial losses. Richer communication channels are used for complex messages to ensure clarity. There are various types of communication channels. Let us learn them in detail. 1. Face-to-face communication channel. Over the years, this communication channel has become way popular in big business organizations because through this channel, managers can communicate with the staff without calling them to one place, thus avoiding unnecessary disturbance and saving time. Video conferencing have become very common these days because facial expressions and tone of the speaker's voice create the desired effects on the recipients. There are no chances of ambiguity, and if necessary, the speakers and the recipients can ask questions to each other and speak. Classifications. Several apps, such as Skype, WhatsApp are easily available for this purpose. 2. Mobile communication channel. Mobile communication channel using smartphone is preferred when a private or confidential message is to be communicated to an individual or a small group of persons. Unlike face-to-face channel, mobile communication channel is less expensive and it saves on time. 3. Electronic communication channel. It includes email, internet, intranet and social media platforms. This channel can be used for one-to-one or one-to-group or mass communication. It is less expensive or even does not involve costs, as many companies such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. have made these media platforms available free of cost. However, while using these channels, sender has to be careful for drafting, posting messages, because inappropriate words can cause confusion or negative publicity. 4. Broadcast media communication. This channel include TV and radio. These types of media channels are usually used by the business organizations for advertising or promoting their products. The CEO of a global company may use this channel for addressing across the global sites. If a message is intended for a mass audience, a broadcast channel is usually used. 5. Written method of communication. Business organizations use this channel for announcing their policies, or for sending memos, letters, manuals, notices, etc. Sometimes, written communications are sent for advertising the products. Recipients may respond through electronic channel or use written method of communication. Receiver. Receiver is the intended target of the business communication sent by the sender. After the message emerges from the channel, it is received at the receiver's end. In fact, after the emergence of the communication from the media, there are 3 stages before the receiver can respond. 1. Reception of the message. Message reception is a key element of the business communication process, because it can induce desired effect on the receiver, if it received properly. For example, if a business enterprise advertises its new product, it will attract the desired customers only if it is received by the customers as well as received by the audience in the right perspective. The research has shown that receptivity is a function of message, audience, i.e., receiver, source, situational and channel characteristics. The combined effect of all these factors determines how receptive a recipient is to a particular communication. 2. Decoding of the message. Decoding is the opposite of encoding, i.e., the encoded message is reconverted with a readable, understandable message. Communication is more effective if decoding matches clearly with encoding. For example, a business enterprise gives a visual advertisement of its product on TV. There are some actions in the advertisement intended to give some specific impressions on the viewer, receiver. The advertisement will be successful only if the viewer is able to understand, decode, the message intended to give through these actions. Sometimes, the recipient may receive in different way from what the encoder was trying to communicate. This is called distortion, and it occurs when there is lack of equivalence between the two sides. 3. Understanding of the message. After the message has been received and decoded, it should be understandable by the receiver. As discussed above, the message should be framed in such a manner that it serves its purpose, i.e., it generates the impression on the receiver that it was intended for. As mentioned, above status of the receiver depends on the status of the sender and nature of the message. Thus, receiver may be a manager or a group leader or a subordinate employee in the organization. Outside the organization, the receiver may be a supplier or a vendor or a retailer or a person in the government department. Feedback. After the receiver has received the message, she sends the response. The analysis of the response in terms of the information sought by the sender is called feedback. For example, the management sender sends a message to the marketing in charge receiver, seeking about the performance of their new product in the market. The marketing officer, after collecting sales data of their product and also of the other competitors' products, prepares a report and makes some suggestions, e.g., decreasing the price or giving some offer, such as buy one get two, etc., and sends to the management response. Thus, the response or reaction of the receiver sent to the sender is the feedback of the whole process. It is the ultimate result of a sequence of events initiated by a message originated from the sender. As mentioned earlier, depending on the type of the message, sender and receiver can exchange their positions. Thus, feedback can also be in both directions. In the above example, the response sent by the marketing officer to the manager is the feedback. If the manager again sends some suggestions or a new strategy to the marketing officer, it will also be called feedback. Feedback is extremely important for making business communication effective. The progress of the business depends on useful feedbacks. All the steps involved in a business communication as described above are depicted diagrammatically in Figure 1.2. Figure 1.2, the whole process of sending and receiving a message. Look at the screen. 1.5 Barriers to communication. In the lexicon of communication, barriers refer to specific reasons that can distort or prevent communication. It affects effective exchange of ideas, thoughts and information. To understand the communication barriers systematically, they can be classified broadly into three groups, namely, personal barriers, environmental barriers and mechanical barriers. Furthermore, each of these classes can be subclassified as shown diagrammatically in Figure 1.3. Figure 1.3, classification of different types of communication barriers. Look at the screen. 1.5.1 Personal barriers. Personal barriers are of two types, namely intrapersonal barriers and interpersonal barriers. Let us learn them in detail. Intrapersonal communication barriers. An individual's own limitations that pose hurdles in the communication are known as intrapersonal communication barriers. Intrapersonal barriers can be subclassified under 5 categories as explained below. 1. Physiological barriers. These are caused by a person's own dysfunctions. Some of the physiological dysfunctions are stammering, difficulty in hearing, poor personality, etc. 2. Psychological barriers. These barriers include mental and psychological disorders, such as shyness, nervousness, stage phobia, etc. Some people suffer from inferiority complex and are not able to face and communicate with their superiors with ease. On the other extreme, a status-conscious superior does not feel comfortable while discussing some problem with his/her juniors. 3. Attitudinal barriers. These types of barriers are the result of an individual's own attitude and assumptions built up over a period due to one's own socioeconomic and cultural background. For example, certain people are introverts, whereas others are very social. They will communicate with different attitudes. Some people have huge ego and are not comfortable while communicating in the presence of many people. 4. Emotional barriers. These barriers result due to one's emotions for certain situations. For example, some people are not comfortable while seeing an adverse situation and may start crying instead of communicating with other people to resolve the crisis. 5. Perceptual barriers. Perceptual barriers are related to an individual's perception to certain situations. People coming from different backgrounds, namely educational, social, cultural and family, etc., have different perceptions to the same situations. Interpersonal barriers. Interpersonal barriers are outside an individual's own self. These barriers come between the sender and the receiver of the message due to various reasons. Sometimes these barriers can be corrected and sometimes they are outside an individual's control. Some of the reasons of interpersonal barriers are prejudices, misconception, disinterest, incorrect facts, anger, obsession with a certain outcome, etc. Some of the important interpersonal barriers are explained below. 1. Cultural barriers. Diverse cultures have diverse sayings or phrases that reflect differences in values, customs and traditions. The phrases and sayings in a language convey a particular meaning in a context which may look odd in other culture. For example, in North America, people often say, the early bird gets the worm, which means that one who is prepared and prompt gets the reward. But if you want to convey the same meaning in Hindi, it will be said differently. For example, the English translation of a popular Hindi saying is, who is awake, he gets the reward. Thus, while communicating, one has to be conscious of cultural sensitivities. In many multinational companies, multifunctional orientation programs are organized for smooth communication. 2. Linguistic barriers, language and culture are interwoven. As explained earlier, sayings having the same theme are expressed differently in different languages. An effective communication is possible if one has control over a certain language. For example, when a Chinese speaks English, he may not be comfortable while communicating in English. The understanding of ethnic speech patterns is helpful for an effective communication. 3. Ethical barriers. Ethical barriers are concerned with the situations where an individual's ethics come in conflict with his professional performance. For example, a salesperson in a retail showroom is under pressure to sell the products even if they are of inferior quality, because his salary comes out of the profits of the sales. This kind of situation prompts the salesperson to persuade the customers to buy the products, even if it is necessary to exaggerate the usefulness of the product. Thus, his conscience or ethics may come in direct conflict with his professional work. 4. Hierarchical of status barriers. As mentioned earlier, some people have ego and are status conscious and are not comfortable while communicating with their juniors. On the other extreme, a person of lower cadre may not communicate with her boss with ease. This type of barrier is very common in feudal societies. 1.5.2 Environmental barriers. The communication barriers resulting from the outside factors are known as environment-based communication barriers. Some of these factors may be within the control of the organization and others may be beyond its control. These barriers may be further subdivided into several categories. Physical barriers. Physical barriers to communication result from the environmental and natural conditions and include factors such as noise, technological problems, echo due to faulty design of the rooms, etc. Thus, they can be further subdivided into the following categories. 1. Noise. An unsuitable surrounding may be the reason of barrier to communication. For example, if a leader speaks in a rally, the noise from nearby traffic or even of the crowd will make him inaudible. Noise may be caused by faulty design of the rooms or sitting arrangements or poor condition of the furniture which cause echo and cracking sound of furniture. Due to this reason, the sender's message will be unclear and the same quality of message will be received by the receiver. 2. Technological problems. The technological problems are associated with the poor quality of instruments used for communication. For example, there may be noise in the telephone lines or mobile connections due to which receiver does not get accurate message. Sometimes, internet connections are very slow or even disrupted and people are not able to communicate in the desired manner. Other technological reasons include computer virus, delivery of spam, delivery of email in the spam box due to non-recognition of the sender, etc. Chronomatic barriers. The problem related to time such as delayed delivery of the message are known as chronomatic barriers. These barriers may be the result of physical distance between the sender and the receiver, different time zones of the sender and receiver of the message, etc. For example, if a manager of a multinational company is placed in India and she wants to seek some important information from the head office in USA, the time difference may cause hindrance in the immediate delivery of the information. For such situations, the meetings have to be planned much in advance. Organizational barriers. Organizational barriers may result due to several factors associated with a particular organization. Following are the main reasons of organizational barriers. 1. Poor communication facilities. It includes telephone, internet, Wi-Fi, fax, computers, stationery, etc. If these facilities are not updated regularly, employees feel handicapped in effective communication. 2. Complex hierarchical structure. Sometimes the employees are not permitted to communicate with the outside agencies directly. Instead, the prepared text of the communication is required to be routed through a complex hierarchical structure upward and then it is routed back downward to the concerned employee, who then sends it. This complex procedure is an organizational barrier and it affects the overall performance of the company. In many Indian public enterprises, this procedure is still followed, which affects their productivity. 3. Cumbersome rules. It is related to the previous point discussed above. In some Organizations, employees are asked to use some prefixed communication mode to communicate among themselves. Also, they are allowed to communicate through certain media only. In other words, free flow of information in the organization is restricted, which delays the over-communication. 4. Inefficient delivery network. In big organizations, letters and other outside material are received by the receipt section, and then these are redistributed to the concerned departments. If this delivery network is not efficient, the documents may not be delivered to the concerned departments, which may delay the response. 1.5.3 Mechanical barriers. Mechanical barriers arise due to technical defect in the machinery and instruments used in the communication. Actually, mechanical instruments, such as computers, telephones, fax machines, etc., require continuous maintenance, in the absence of which they create noise and cause disruption in the transmission of the communication. Tools used for personal use, such as hearing aids, amplifiers, signaling devices, braille and special needs telephones, magnifiers, text telephones and TDD, telephone, devices for the deaf machines, are also included in the category, and any defect in these instruments causes mechanical barriers. Power failure and internet disruption are mechanical barriers to communication. Besides, following types of interruptions can also be included in the category of mechanical barriers. Transmission interruption. The communications such as email, fax message, papers, mobiles, citizen band radios, VHF radios and satellite communications are transmitted in the form of digital signals. If there is any interruption in the transmission due to various reasons, the communication will be interrupted. Outdated instruments. As mentioned earlier, the instruments for communications require continuous maintenance and, if necessary, replacement. However, in the absence of the availability of sufficient funds, these instruments are not changed, which causes communication barriers. Power failure. Almost all the modern communication devices are electrically operated. Thus, a steady source of power with stable voltage is imperative for smooth communication. In developed countries, there is seldom any power failure. However, in underdeveloped countries, particularly in remote areas, there is power failure causing communication interruptions. 1.6 How to remove communication barriers. In the previous section, different types of barriers have been described. While discussing these barriers, the causes of each type of barriers were also discussed. Thus, if we consciously try to avoid these causes, barriers to communication can be overcome. In this section, we shall briefly discuss how can these barriers to communication be overcome. It is needless to overemphasize that in this age of globalization, an effective communication network is a prerequisite for the success of an organization. After understanding the reasons of different types of communication barriers, appropriate corrective measures are taken. Here we shall discuss various steps to overcome different types of communication barriers. To overcome physiological and psychological barriers. If necessary, mental health professionals should be consulted to address anxiety and phobia disorders. With continuous practice, under proper guidance and using appropriate aids, physiological barriers such as stammering, difficulty in hearing, etc., can be overcome. If there are situations that irritate you, you should withdraw with the communication for some time until you have controlled your emotions. Sometimes it is imperative to accept imperfection because you may not have control over the person you are communicating with. To overcome interpersonal barriers. Earlier we discussed that interpersonal barriers include cultural barriers, linguistic barriers, ethical barriers and hierarchical barriers. To overcome these barriers, one should try to follow the following guidelines. A. Use of simple language. One should try to use simple and clear words. At the same time, the tone and content of the message should be courteous so that it does not offend the receiver. Message should be brief, pertaining to the actual purpose. B. Consistency of the message. The message should be in consonance with the objectives, strategies, programs and techniques of the organization. C. Try to be a patient listener. While communicating verbally, the sender and the receiver are expected to be good listeners. They should have patience and positive attitude towards each other. D. Organizing workshops for intercultural interactions. In big organizations where people from different cultural backgrounds work, it is helpful to organize intercultural workshops where people get an opportunity to understand sensitivities of each other. A. Consult before communication. While communicating internationally, it is helpful to consult the persons who are aware of the background of the receiver. F. Simpler hierarchical setup. In Western countries, status barriers are uncommon. Thus, the organizations working in India should try to adapt this type of culture where inhibitions of interactions between the people of different cadres are minimal. To overcome environmental, organizational and physical barriers. A. Use of modern instruments. Environmental and physical barriers can be minimized by introducing modern instruments of communication in the organization and establishing a system of continuous maintenance and modernization. The rooms should be designed which are eco-free and, as far as possible, other infrastructure such as furniture, audio-video aids, etc. should be modern. B. Effective inside delivery system. An effective delivery system in an organization is essential so that written messages received in the reception section are promptly and judiciously delivered to the persons concerned. C. To overcome technical problems. The technical problems can be overcome by establishing effective coordination with governmental and municipal authorities. 1.7 Principles of Effective Communication. The American Management Association has identified essentials of effective communication. They are popularly called as the 10 Commandments of Effective Communication. 1. Clarity of ideas. Before sending the communication, the sender should first clarify the ideas in mind as to what she wants to communicate. According to Terry Thay, principle of effective communication is, first to fully inform oneself. 2. Appropriate language. The communication should be in simple language. Jargon and technical words should be avoided. 3. Consistency. A consistency in the communication should be maintained. One should try to avoid to give too many things at a time. 4. Adequate information. Communication should have complete information about the subject under consideration, because incomplete facts may create confusion and irritation. 5. Proper time. The communication should reach the receiver at the proper time. A late delivery of communication may lose its relevance. 6. Draw attention. The communication should be so worded that it draws attention of the receiver and she goes through it with attention. 7. Touch of informality. Although official communications are generally formal, a touch of informality here and there may create positive environment. Many problems can be solved amicably through informal channels. 8. Consultation. If necessary, one should not hesitate to consult appropriate authority before sending the communication. 9. Perception of future. Communicate with future as well as present in mind. 10. Feedback. The sender should seek feedback so that future action can be planned. One should be conscious of these 10 commandments while communicating others. To be effective and successful, a good communicator is a winner. Receiver orientation is the basic principle of effective communication. 1.8 Let us sum up. Communication can be defined as imparting or exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using some other medium. The successful conveying or sharing of ideas and feelings. The process of communication occurs via sender, message, encoding, channel, has some specific purpose and may be directed to an individual or a group of persons. Encoding. Transmitted. The channel is the medium through which the communication is sent to its intended receivers. In this age of IT, a variety of channels are available. Depending on the need of an organization, an appropriate channel can be selected. After the message emerges from the channel, it is received at the receiver's end. It is then decoded, a process opposite to the encoding, so that it becomes understandable by the receiver. Thus receiver sends the response, which is then interpreted. The interpreted response is called feedback. Thus, feedback is the final result of the communication sent by the sender. There are some barriers that can distort or prevent communication. It affects effective exchange of ideas, thoughts and information. The communication barriers can be classified broadly into 3 groups, namely personal barriers, environmental barriers and mechanical barriers. However, these barriers can be overcome by taking appropriate measures. There are 10 commandments for effective communication. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.